Hi, Dave Jones here again. We're going to look at the natural minor scale today, a movable scale form. If you're following this series of lessons, we'll have covered the minor pentatonic, the major pentatonic, the blues scale, the major scale, and I've left this one to last because the fingering can be a little bit tricky, and I'll take you through a close-up of that. But that's what I would call, if you're following these lessons, the essential scales of music. If you know those in one position, minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, blues scale, major scale, and natural minor scale. If you're doing RGT exams, that would cover you up to grade 3, knowing those movable scale forms. You need to know those all in one position. We'll go into further positions of each scale later, but I'll do you a little close-up with the natural minor, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay, as usual, I'm doing this in A. The PDF's up on the website. But I just want to take you through the fingering. This one is slightly more tricky. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off on the A note on the 5th fret of the thick E string. Then we're going to play the 7th fret with our 3rd finger. We're going to play the 8th fret with our 4th finger. We're going to go down to the A string, 5th fret with the 1st finger, 7th fret with the 3rd finger, 8th fret with the 4th finger, down to the D string, 1st fret with the 1st finger, 7th fret with the 3rd finger. Now we're going to go down to the G string, but we're going to go back to the 4th fret, which involves you moving this finger out of position, back to the 4th fret with the 1st finger. Then we're going to go to the 5th fret on the G string with the 2nd finger, the 7th fret on the G string with the 4th finger. Then we're going to move this 1st finger from the 4th fret to the 5th fret on the B string. And then we're going to play the 6th fret on the B string with our 2nd finger, and then we're going to play the 8th fret on the B string with our 4th finger, and then we're going to play the 5th fret on the high E string, the end of the 2 octaves, with our 1st finger. And when we come back down, we're going to do the opposite change, if you like. We're going to play the 8th fret with the little finger on the B string, and then we're going to play the 6th fret on the B string with the 2nd finger. We're going to play the 5th fret on the B string with the 1st finger. Now when we move to the G string now at the 7th fret, instead of using the 3rd finger, we're going to use our 4th finger, and then we're going to use the 5th fret play the 5th fret on the G string with our 2nd finger, and then the 4th fret on the G string with our 1st finger. And then when we go up to the next string, we're going to move out position again, and we're going to play the 7th fret on the D string, this time with our 3rd finger, and then we're going to play the 5th fret on the D string with our 1st finger. Then we're going to play the 8th fret on the A string with our 4th finger, the 7th fret with our 3rd finger, 5th fret with our 1st finger, up to the E string. We're going to play the 8th fret with our little finger, 7th fret with our 3rd finger, and then finally the 5th fret with our 1st finger. And that is your natural minor scale, in this case in A, but as I've said before, it's a movable form. Okay, yeah, so that's the natural minor scale. In that case it was A because we're starting at the 5th fret, but if you're following these videos along, you should know now that you can move that scale, and whatever fret you start at, that will be the name of that natural minor scale. Very useful scale in improvising. It's the parent scale, if you've seen some of the theory videos of the minor pentatonic. The minor pentatonic has 2 notes from the natural minor left out, rather like the major pentatonic has 2 notes from the major scale left out. And those notes can create tension, which is a good thing in a lot of cases. So experiment with the scale as soon as you feel comfortable with it. It's very important, if you can, to follow that fingering that I mentioned, though. That's very important. The idea of stepping backwards there, and then the same on the way back down. The reason being for that is as you learn more positions of scales, that it's a useful fingering to have, and as there's 5 positions of every scale basically on the guitar, I won't go too much into it at the moment. I'll do it in further lessons because it's very important. I know I keep saying this, but it's very important to have one scale that you can improvise and noodle around in and create phrases and licks than it is to learn hundreds and hundreds of scales and not be able to use them. So, but as you learn more scale shapes, that fingering will become more clear as to why it's useful, and because it covers certain notes on the fretboard. So it's very important that you try and get that fingering right. That's why in this series of, if you like, what I would call essential scales, the major and minor pentatonic, the major and natural minor, and the blues scale covers most styles of rock, pop, blues music, even jazz music. So you could, once you know these scales, the ones, if you're following the closed position scales, you would be capable of improvising a guitar solo over most styles, not an entire jazz tune because they change key and all that sort of stuff in most of the time. There's various weird chords in there and stuff that go on, but a general, what they call a diatonic song that stays in key, you would be able to improvise over well, actually, just knowing the 2 octave scales that we've covered so far in the lessons. So I hope you found that useful. Learn the scale, start noodling around, practicing phrases in the scale, and if you're feeling particularly brave, you could always use because you could probably see by the fingering, the minor pentatonic scale is within that scale, with 2 notes missed out. You can flick between the 2 of them if you want to, using the minor pentatonic scale, and then adding some natural minor notes in occasionally. Might help you phrasing. You might like the idea of doing that, which would be a cool thing to do. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you again sometime.